RACC-IT podcast. I'm Andrew MacDowall, the founding director of Toros Advisory, a UK-based strategic advisory company that helps clients identify opportunity and manage risk in markets around the world. I'm joined today by Adam Ghadiali, Director and Head of Growth UK at PropTech company Brightspaces. Thanks for joining, Adam.
Hey, Andrew. Nice to be with you today.
Likewise. To get the ball rolling, I know you've had a long career in real estate, starting in bricks and mortar and now moving on to the technology side, though still with some interest in the physical aspect of the built environment. So if you could tell me a little bit about your career, how it's panned out and how you've got to where we are today.
Sure, absolutely. At the moment I'm working for Brightspaces, as you said. We're a 3D pre-visualization dashboard for the built environment. What that basically means, and I think what's more commonly used, is digital twins. But we use digital twins for sales and to streamline decision making more broadly. We're a sales tool, we're a customization tool. We help to support stakeholder engagement. We're also getting involved in operations, which is something very, very new. But at the moment, most of our kind of use cases has been to help developers sell faster, which on average is around 30 to 40% faster than traditional methods. Traditional methods being, brochures or floor plans or videos and CGIs. So that's what we do. My journey into the kind of digital realm of real estate didn't just start there. I was also previously working for a company called Delta Q. They've now rebranded to a company called Denergy, based in Brussels. And there I was head of sales for the UK. What they do is they basically predict the behavior of the building, but in the context of CO2. And then they use weather forecast data with occupancy metrics to basically see how much energy they can ultimately save in your building. So that was quite a sophisticated product. That was for sure, that was my first journey from kind of traditional bricks and mortar real estate into the digital world. So I think I've learned a lot. I think it's been sort of 3 to 4 years now where I've been in that sort of prop tech sector. I think kind of bridging that gap between traditional real estate and technology has not been easy. And I think it's an evolving metric. But it's pretty amazing to kind of be at the forefront of that in the UK. Because in the UK, we love to debate. We love to kind of experiment with different solutions. I think action typically is a bit slow. I think that's probably a reflection of our government as well in many respects. That's my view anyway. But anyway, it's great to kind of be within this kind of very sort of innovative environment in the UK where we can debate and challenge some of these topics. Before that, as you said, I've been very much involved in the kind of traditional bricks and mortar real estate. I started when I was 18, so by fluke took on a sort of low-level junior estate agency role for a firm called White Estates in London, and did that kind of ultimately. I nearly did that for about 8 years. So I did that whilst I was studying, whilst I took a couple of years away to go, on holiday and travel, which really opened my eyes to many experiences. So once I ultimately graduated, I studied business management. I went into sort of more development-related real estate. So I was working for a really reputable company called YOO. They're reputable, but they're also, very different to your traditional developer. They're very, very focused on design. So U was actually co-founded by Philip Stark, the iconic, famous designer, who's designed many things from toothbrushes to motorbikes to boats, and U was ultimately set up to be the residential arm of Stark Design. And the other founder was John Hitchcox, who's a prolific kind of developer in the UK, certainly a synonymous name with many projects in London and in the Cotswolds. And my role there was to help grow the U brand internationally. And I had a particular focus on the emerging markets. So spent many days and weeks trying to get projects off the ground in places like Central Asia and Kazakhstan and Georgia. But interestingly, it was actually my my footing in Central America, which I feel like is kind of where my kind of career was beginning to take off. There was a very interesting piece of land on the Pacific Ocean side of Panama, where we identified a site which was ultimately a peninsula site on an existing island called Isla del Rey. And it's absolutely stunning. I mean, everyone who we were sort of introducing it to got very, very excited. It's got caves, it's got coves. We've got a 20-hectare natural marina there, which can actually accommodate up to 99 mega yachts, which is quite interesting. It'll be the first for Panama as a country. They've also got black sand, they've got white sand, they've got golden sand. I mean, it's really, really diverse in that respect. You've also got east beaches, you've got west beaches. So uniquely, you've got sunset and sunrise on the same property. Yeah, I mean, you could call it in some respects a passion project just because, you know, everyone had fallen in love with it. But I think where things really began to kind of take off was when we aligned with Jean-Michel Ghadiali, who's a very famous architect. He actually won the most influential luxury architect in the world, I think, 2 years ago. So he's designed many, many interesting projects with a lot of interesting brands. You know, he was the head architect for Aman. He was the head architect for One and Only. He's also done many LVMH projects. So he is someone who understands rough and rigid kind of environments and turning them into ultra luxury destinations. So that was great. That was a really amazing experience, and it's ongoing. That was maybe 5-6 years ago now. We at the time, I'll say about 3 years ago, we aligned with an amazing brand called Discover Collection, which is a fairly new brand. They're launching their first site this year in Oman. So I'm personally very much looking forward to that. But yeah, they've been very, very close to our project in Panama, and we have subsequently signed 2 more projects with the same brand, one in Ireland and one in Italy. So these projects will take a couple of years to come off the ground, of course. So I think, certainly over the last 5-6 years, I've been fortunate enough to kind of be involved with your traditional bricks and mortar type developments, certainly very unique, kind of targeting a particular crowd. And at the same time, I've managed to benefit from trying to introduce digital technologies, AI technologies specifically, into the built environment. And yeah, I think there's been a lot of things that I've learned during that process, a lot of pitfalls, a lot of opportunity. And here we are today trying to make the most of it.
Great. Thank you. What an interesting career, and some of your experiences in emerging markets doubtless tally with mine, helping investors work out what's going on in parts of the world that many mainstream investors might not go to, but where there are great opportunities, which is always interesting and quite exciting. Just to go back a bit to your current work, if you could explain the concept of a digital twin. This is obviously, it's a word that one can come across in the media, but in your words, in simple terms, for a layperson, what is a digital twin and how can it help?
Yeah, so I think a digital twin, more broadly speaking, is a digital replica of a building, or a digital replica of a city, or a digital replica of a room. So digital twins is not limited to, just specific asset classes. I think it could be used as a technology for many, many different things. In our world, in Brightspaces, as I mentioned earlier, we use digital twins mostly to support sales. So what we do is we can go from anywhere from the exterior of a building or the exterior of a mixed-use site to be more complicated, and anything down to the detail on the interiors as well. And everything we do is in the future. So we are not a company. There are many other companies out there that use kind of physical cameras or 360-degree cameras to kind of render your existing environment. So they'll render what you're currently in or experiencing today. That's not what we do. We focus on the future. So we show you what things could look like when a project is either currently undergoing construction, or is going through a planning phase, or is in need of a fit out. So it could be any one of those three. And so typically a client, which could be a developer, it could be an architect, it could be a landlord, it could be an operator, they would share with us a floor plan, which is very static, it's 2D. And then we, depending on what our KPIs are, if it's something purely on the interior, within 3 to 5 days, we would be able to render in 3D that environment. And I think one other important thing to mention as well is everything we do is web and cloud based. So it will be as simple as sharing a link with someone, provided they have a 4G connection or Wi-Fi, whatever that might be. Provided they have that, then we can put the model into their website, or we can make it shareable. And they can literally go all the way from the exterior of the master plan, explore the environment around it. We actually also integrate it with Google Maps, so you've got a further understanding of not just the building itself, but the roads that surround it and the infrastructure that surround it. And then when exploring the building, almost like in a video game, you'd be able to see what the live availability of certain units are. So if it's a commercial office building, you can see the live availability of certain floors, certain units within those floors. You can see, we can also visualize what the split levels might be in a particular unit as well. We can also kind of customize what our requirements are. So am I currently seeking a unit that is 1,000 square feet or 2,000 square feet? What is the sort of occupancy levels I'm looking for if it's an office? So am I looking for something that can accommodate, I don't know, say 10 occupants in one space? Am I looking for something that can accommodate 200 occupants? So all of those kind of customization tools are kind of built into our model. We have an open API functionality, so that live availability is live, it's real. So then that's on the exterior. So I select the unit I want, then I can go into the interiors. So if I've selected, say, a floor plate that is, I don't know, 2,000 square feet or 5,000 square feet, I can explore that space as shell and core, and then I can also see it fitted in as well. So some landlords now are providing, pre-fitted out units, which is great. And I think that's great because it's giving people, more understanding of how the space can be utilized. It's giving people more of an understanding on what the room will look like with their branded colors, with their branded logos, with their branded furniture. And we can also go a little bit further. We can show them multiple fit out options as well. So literally at a click of a button, you can select multiple kind of fit out options. I think what's also interesting is that we've got a back-end admin panel. Now, why that's interesting, I mean, this is much more marketing driven now, but the back-end admin panel, it basically tells the landlord or developer or whoever the client is how many meters someone is virtually walking. So if you're targeting, say, hybrid buyers or hybrid tenants, so these are people making decisions in not that sort of home location, this admin panel will tell you, okay, you've got X number of unique IDs that have accessed the model from Hungary, or this is how many people in Poland are kind of currently interested in your space, and this is how many meters they virtually walked. And also, if you want to focus in one particular corner of the room, we know that they spent more time in that corner versus somewhere else. So it's that corner that they're particularly interested in. So that's the sort of high level stuff that technology is able to do. We're also getting more. I mean, the majority of our use cases are in commercial offices and in residential, but we are interestingly getting more into logistics. So in Romania, we're working with the largest logistics company, which is great. We've actually mapped their entire portfolio. We're noticing that more and more logistic projects are being signed, and that's where a lot of investment is going into. So I think there's definitely a growth path for the logistics sector. We've also interestingly started doing things within events, something a bit experimental. So watch this space later on this year. There'll be something that we'll be putting out there into the domain. And we're also getting more conversations around retail and in hospitality. But yeah, ultimately the technology could be completely asset agnostic and could be used in anywhere.
Got it. Thank you very much for that very thorough description of what you're doing. Are there any specific examples that you think illustrate particularly how your technology can be useful for your clients? Times that have been a sort of a eureka moment when you see this is really clicking and this is really working for a client.
Yeah. So I think we've got a number of different case studies. I think the ones that I found particularly interesting are with Skanska and with Schroders. So with Skanska, we've got a building with them in Bucharest where we help them lease most of their office stock sort of anywhere between 40 and 50% faster than traditional methods. So that was a really good one. We are now getting involved with them with a project in Sweden and in other parts of the world on the back of that success. My favorite one, though, is the one with Schroders. So it's still ongoing. So we basically rendered a master plan of a mixed use, very complicated mixed use site in the Netherlands. And the next phase of this is basically to get onto the interiors and start, being a leasing solution, which is ultimately the end goal. But what with the interesting bit, even though we're kind of in this kind of sort of development phase with them as a digital partner, is that the first phase was to do the exteriors. And again, I mentioned it is quite complicated. It's very mixed use. There's a lot of buildings within this master plan that isn't theirs. And then there are some which is theirs. So we basically mapped this in this quite complex mixed use site. But interestingly, they were using our technology to kind of showcase what their leasing strategy is and also the phasing of of how the project has developed with their LP funders. And so this tool, whilst it's a sales tool at its heart, it was actually proving to be very useful in managing their funding stakeholders. So there's stakeholder alignment there as well. So that's something that I think no one really expected to happen. But certainly that's where it's being useful today. So we're obviously very happy that the client is happy with that new use case.
Got it. Thank you. Looking more broadly now, what role do you feel that technology and AI can play in the property sector?
Yeah, it's a good one. I think with the people that we're speaking to, I think increased customization is something that is a demand. So I think the ability to provide more and more customization tools is something that is going to grow in the real estate sector. I think also being able to go at a very granular level with operations is something that I think people have tried to do, and it's something that we've also experimented in as well. So what I mean by that is, I think that in our world, the perfect analogy to use is, what is your current process, and here's how it could work with us. Now, in our world, most people's current process is they're using a floor plan and they're using Excel. In our world, we can basically combine the two. So in operations, if you're a preventative maintenance company, for example, your role is to basically manage all the air handling and fan call units within a building. Now, there's live data that feeds into that. So at the moment, how are you managing that? Well, you've got something in an Excel sheet, which you're basically updating as and when. And I think where things get particularly problematic is a lot of these air handling units actually have deferring sell-by dates. So that's where things can become, more and more complicated. So in our model, what we've been able to do is we've basically mapped the entire, say if it's a floor or multiple floors, we've kind of mapped where all of those air handling units are located in the sort of in the HVAC. And then because they've got live data being fed through them, we can help to kind of visualize where all of that is. So that really helps to kind of streamline the operations team, and they can very easily now identify where these things are and can react to them promptly. So whilst this is a digital solution, it's a digital solution that is supporting a physical end goal. So people can physically go and attend to these things. So I think that's where technology is genuinely being useful, be it a more kind of physical requirement or a physical process that is ultimately needed. So that's very interesting. I think also, when we look at, if I go back to kind of sales, these portals like Rightmove and Zoopla, and they ultimately, I feel like in property, those were the kind of first kind of prop tech solutions that were sort of in the mainstream, and they of course have developed over time. Now those companies are using companies like Matterport to help people kind of, visualize their space in a 3D environment. And Matterport are an amazing company. They really are. I have a lot of respect for what they've done. And that's the company I mentioned earlier, that they use a 360-degree camera and they're doing it very quickly and very efficiently. Where we're sort of getting involved on the 3D is again on the future of spaces. And I think, I think everyone we've spoken to unanimously agree that is where the future is going, particularly if you're trying to appeal to more and more hybrid buyers or more and more hybrid tenants. Often, people are more mobile now. You can take your business anywhere. So kind of appealing to people's kind of needs from that perspective, I think is something that's certainly going to grow.
Got it. Thank you. And I think that element of streamlining and speed that you talked about in terms of your clients delivering to their clients is increasingly important. And as you say, that I think with the technology, also that international aspect of being able to virtually access property is increasingly valuable. Yes, and we chatted about this before. Prop tech seems a slightly underdeveloped sector compared to, for example, fintech, where fintechs are to a penny, some very good, some less good. Why has there been that gap? Why has this sector been relatively slow in adopting advanced technology and now AI?
Well, that is the golden question. I think I've got many views on this. I think, in my experience, and I'm talking currently in the kind of sales environment. The sales environment is very much protected by agents. In the UK, agents it's all about your relationships, your human connections with people. And an agent, and I used to be an agent, so I get it. I know. The first thing that you wake up is not how am I going to sell this house? It's how am I going to get my new instruction? That's that I think that mentality is still prevalent today. And I think when you're trying to, as a company like Brightspaces, I think people kind of view technology as being very much a disruptor in the sort of real estate environment, and perhaps Brightspaces there might be a perception of that as well. But bearing in mind, we're just a sales tool. We're there to kind of support. We're not there to take people's commissions away. Unfortunately, I think the perception from an outside point of view is that's probably what this technology is looking to do. Perhaps it's seen as a threat, and of course, people will want to kind of protect their business in that respect. But that's just something that I've seen. I think I've sort of I've engaged with very sort of innovative agents who have that innovative mindset and are looking at these types of solutions as tools. I've also come across those who don't, and I think that's something that has kind of hindered progress in the technology space. I think also, and I'm talking a little bit more specifically about the UK, and correct me if I might have got this wrong, but I believe there are about 70,000 prop techs out there. The problem is often your route to market, when you're thinking about growing from the ground up, is you are reaching out to the innovation departments in most of these companies. Now, these innovation departments are great. They wouldn't exist if they weren't there. In the UK, I'm pretty sure that most prop techs are pitching to the same innovation manager, whether you're at GPE, whether you're at the Crown Estate, whether you're the Langham Estate. I mean, most of these people are inundated with being pitched to on a daily basis. And a lot of this prop tech solutions out there, I feel, from having scoped the market, is the majority of those solutions are very much focused on energy transition, and CO2 reduction, manage your building more efficiently when it comes to energy. I think that has been a theme that I think has, it has become quite saturated, unfortunately. Which is a shame, because having, my experience with Delta Q is I was able to, again, be at the forefront of all these energy type of solutions, and everyone is doing something different. And I think, unfortunately, an innovation manager might sort of view it as being one of the same. So that's just something that I'm seeing in that respect. I think in the digital twin environment, again, I don't like to use the word digital twin because there are a lot of digital twin companies out there. There are some that are much more focused on kind of operational aspects of a building. There are some that are focused more in my environment, which is the sales process of a building. So I just think that certain words need to be thought about in terms of what it is that they do. I think also we've become very ROI obsessed as well. I think, unfortunately, time moves very, very quickly in the technology world, in sectors, not even real estate, in financial services, for example. And I feel like 2 years ago, it was like, you need to tell us what our return on investment is going to be. Now, that is still very useful. You still do need to convince people, why they should choose your solution, whether it's saving money or whether it's making more money, to kind of demonstrate what the return on investment is going to be. However, I am seeing more and more and more just ROI case studies. ROI case studies. There has to be something more than ROI that differentiates your product from the rest of the crowd. So these are just some of the trends, some of my observations of.
How do you differentiate? What ways can prop techs differentiate?
Well, let's go back to bricks and mortar. So I mentioned Discover Collection, right? They are one of thousands, probably more than thousands, of hospitality operators. There are so many out there. And just like most industries, there are trends, there are, differing sort of types of demands and benefits that are being put out there into the market. You go to somewhere like Dubai, I mean, oh my God, you've got so many different needs so many different sort of ideas that are being, spun out of the ground. Interestingly, as Discover Collection, they're a new brand, but they are a new brand with kind of old bones. So they're basically the new hospitality offer of an existing, very successful resort residential development called Discovery Land Company. So they're based in the US. Now, they have, since 1993, built a very successful marketing company whereby they target the sort of ultra wealthy kind of Hollywood crowd. And they've basically almost invented barefoot luxury, but for that particular market. What Discover Collection have done, so it's the old owners of Six Senses. So they sold the Six Senses brand back in, I think, 2018 or 2019, and that team invented barefoot luxury, but for the hospitality environment. So they kind of brought their sort of history and ID with developing out Six Senses, which became very, very successful and still is today, and kind of joined up forces with Discovery Land to kind of create this barefoot luxury experience. Now, they are creating something new, through their brand. And I think that's something that needs to be thought about in the PropTech sector. So through their brand, they've managed to still innovate. So they're focusing on very rural environments, very sort of rough experiences, but combining that with luxury. So, for example, they're doing projects in kind of rural parts of Kenya. They're doing a project currently in rural parts of Albania. They're doing something very interestingly in the Bahamas. Now, some of these are destinations in their own right, but you'd be very surprised as to where they've decided to do, what the location specifically they've decided to do these types of projects. They've chosen projects that are, really far away from sort of mainland or city environments. They're looking for something very special. They know that their membership are increasingly demanding off-beaten track destinations, something that they couldn't experience if they were to go to another sort of well-known brand. So I think that's a good example of how they kind of differentiated themselves purely through design and brand. Now, why can't the same type of differentiation or innovation be used in the PropTech sector? I think what's also interesting is that the PropTech sector since it's sort of been around, which I don't know, might be, 10 years, maybe a bit longer, it's been very much focused on kind of city environments. I think personally, this might be a passion thing to say, but I would like to see more PropTech solutions that's focused on rural destinations. I think, the world is a big place and cities, of course, need to evolve. But I think, if you want to start differentiating yourself, maybe focus on kind of port development projects, more logistic hubs. I think that could be very interesting.
Got it. Thank you. I think your point about it being quite a traditional industry, property really rings true with anyone who's tried to buy a house. There's still a lot of personal interaction, which in many ways is a good thing. But there do seem to be things, even with things like mortgage approval, where there are slow grinding of gears, in which you think technology could again really shorten that sales process and make it less painful for everyone. Very much hope that'll happen. Just finally, a couple of things. Recently, I was moderating a panel at which a chap called Ian Humphrey spoke from Brickflow, a sort of PropTech company with fintech aspects, I think. And they're focused on trying to tackle the housing crisis in the UK. And you said in the beginning, the problems that created the UK planning system and sort of the regulatory environment, government. How can PropTech help us address the issues that we have in the UK with needing to build more houses and needing more infrastructure?
That's a very good question. I think, the UK is in a bit of a tough spot. You've got, the government are talking about kind of, reducing the red tape and getting rid of this kind of over-regulation that we have. And they've got a very strong commitment to build, 1.2 million homes over the next kind of 5 years. It's a very, very ambitious target.
Extremely.
It's an extremely ambitious target. And then, I think, unfortunately, you've also got a big problem with kind of wealth inequality as well. I think it's the baby boomers, I hear, that kind of own most of the kind of real estate stock in the UK. And I know there's all sorts of solutions being proposed. Like I think I read yesterday that they're going to impose a sort of double tax on your second home. I think some of these things are helpful, but unfortunately, and this is probably a bigger discussion than it needs to be. But I think there's going to have to be a balance, because I think if you're going to overtax, people at the top, which I think morally should be done, I think the reality is that people are more mobile, and people will just leave. I think we're already seeing that. I think there's been about 11,000 millionaires that have left the UK. And that's just purely a byproduct of the fact that people and businesses have become more and more mobile. I think where can prop tech kind of help to solve this issue? I think prop tech is what is it? It's technology. It's data. I think prop tech could support providing more granular level data on some of the things I just mentioned. So helping to sort of understand what is the real kind of wealth inequality that exists or may not exist in the UK. What sort of mechanisms can we support government to for them to potentially change their policies around some of these very sensitive, very profound topics today? I think a lot of these numbers seem to be, very widely spread as well. So I think I read yesterday that, the double tax system is only going to kind of bring in, I think, 500 million in tax revenues per year?
Not very much.
It's not very much. No, exactly. So it doesn't really necessarily seem like a very well thought out initiative. Think about the loss of taxes you're going to receive if another 11 million millionaires decide to leave the UK. So I think there needs to be, a stronger, more intelligent kind of debate around what the government should do on some of these topics. And I think the availability of data through prop tech companies is potentially a good way to help the government, solve some of these very, very big problems. Not a solution as such, but more focus on data.
Got it. Thank you. A final question. What motivates you when you get up in the morning?
My estate agency days are far past me now, so I'm not thinking about that new instruction. I think what personally gets me going, gets my juices flowing is, look, I didn't plan to get into property. I didn't really know what I wanted to do when I was a kid. To tell you the truth, I literally fell into this by fluke. I needed a Saturday job, and I literally approached an agent in Kensington at the time. I thought that was a nice area, so I thought I'd just go knocking on doors, and basically got a job as a Saturday boy to pick up the phones. And then on my second Saturday, it was, I think one of the agents was hungover or something.
Doesn't sound entirely surprised.
Classic. And he said, "Look, Adam, can you just open this door? You need to let someone in to have a look at this flat." And I was very nervous. My hands were shaking when I opened the door. I was 18 years old. And I don't know, maybe the guys took pity on me, the people I was viewing it with. They actually made an offer. I assumed they made an offer because they liked the flat, not because of my shaky hands. But they were very nice with me. And so arguably I did my first sale on my first viewing at 18. No one expected it. I definitely didn't expect it. But look, it happened. Look, that situation, for some reason, it still sticks with me today, because I didn't plan to get into sales. I didn't plan to get into property. But what it did kind of open my eyes to is it kind of opened my eyes to what's possible. And now with some of the things I'm getting involved with, with Bright Spaces, it's interesting that it's a visualization tool, because for me, helping to visualize a project, the finished project is so, I do get a kick out of that. Genuinely, I do get a kick out of that with, some of these other kind of fringe projects I've mentioned, and, my experience when I was working at I got to see the kind of development and the sort of finished product at the end of it. And as a kid, I was massively into art. I was massively into buildings. I was massively into kind of drawing and kind of creating something. And weirdly enough, these kind of experiences are kind of transcending that passion that I have for art into kind of finished products. So for me, the chase isn't the sale. The chase is the finished product and visualizing what that could look like.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Adam Ghadiali, thank you so much for joining us. It's been a real pleasure.
Yeah.
And look forward to staying in touch.
Yeah, likewise. Thank you.